All right. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Pamela Aaralyn,
Okay.
here with my facilitator, Anya. Let's do a brief sound check for both herself and me before we get started.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Yay! They can hear me.
Can you hear both of us? Yes? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel and for so many of you coming over from Next Level Soul. I really appreciate that. All right. Please save all of your questions until the facilitator prompts you, because we took your questions in advance on my YouTube community page. You probably noticed the post, and we took all of your
We have
questions.
over 100 questions, guys.
We had 195 questions, and we chose according to what the human from the future wanted. I brought many of them to her. It was fun trying to remember them, because it's not like I can bilocate and carry a little notebook and say, "Hi, here's the notebook." So that was fun, a fun little test of my memory skills. So she chose, and she loved your questions. So we are channeling a human from year 2028. I've channeled all the way out into year 2300. And now I've been asked by many of you to go backwards to a more relatable time frame. So we are going to do that. Right. Please also note that many of the questions about location, we are going to take as many from your questions that you have previously inputted to us, both on Patreon and YouTube, as time allots. However, it is a small amount of time that you can hold a channel who is actually bilocating. There's only a certain amount of time that I can do with that, which is why we can't reach every single place in the world as much as I would absolutely love to try. So instead, we do the world predictions. Look forward into the future and look at our current alignment in time and look at world predictions for the month. And we do world predictions every year for the whole year as well. I've already put up my world predictions for January, but then as things change monthly, or if I see something new at the beginning of the month, you will get another world predictions update. So that would be a really good time for you to show up live, following your notifications. Make sure you subscribe, notify, and click all, so that you can come when I'm here live. And during those world predictions would be an exceptional time to talk about your specific place in the world, and much easier for me to get in that time frame because I can do semi-conscious channeling and be wide awake and just go boom, 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 boom right through it like that. So easier that way. So hold most of that. We took as many as we could get.
There was another question that we were going to look at the start about does going into the future change present timelines?
Oh, yeah, you guys have had so many exceptional questions about how bilocation and channeling actually works, because it is a unique form of channeling. And it can change the future. I found that it changes the future for the better, because then if you get offended by what you see in your future, it's a collective timeline potential. Nothing's set in stone. And I do like to give that little disclaimer, because it puts the power back in your hands, where you understand how time works in the quantum field. We're all interestingly entangled, right? That's why we're on this channel, and that's why we're interested in humans from the future, so that we can look at what we can do to empower ourselves and our families and our children and our children's children, etc., our friends, our family members, our societies all around the world. And we can do what we can do. And if we don't like a time frame, we can also say, hey, I don't like that. Perhaps in a channeling later, we can ask, okay, this was our alignment, but what can we do to shift into something different and more empowering? So that is why I provide humans from the future channelings and bilocation experiences, because I want to put the power back in your hands versus scare you. If something scares you, you feel disempowered, ask the appropriate questions, right? What can I do to not have that happen? And also, This probably doesn't need to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway. It may not be your timeline. It may not, you may be on a completely different timeline and you may not align to that unique timeline at all. There are hundreds and thousands and millions and billions of them. They are irretrievable, not even, I can't even count how many timelines we actually have in our current projection. But what I do is I look at the entire collective. And obviously, people coming to my channel are already very 5D aligned. So you come to a channeling and remote viewing by location experience and you see a negative potential for the majority of the world and you're not in that timeline. Why? Because you're 5D aligned, and then you're going to get scared. Well, please don't. If it's not in your timeline, it's okay. I'm trying to reach people who haven't found this channel yet so that a change can be made. So that's why some of the things you hear are very 3D in alignment, correct? So what I'm trying to do right now is give you your current 5D alignment. Now, this is, and also in fifth density living and fifth dimensional planes of experiencing, there are hundreds to thousands to millions to billions of different 5D alignments. So, as you can suspect, our current 5D alignment is not going to be something where we have separated from 3D and we don't see it. That's not how multidimensionality works. All right. And I will have her explain that to you, not me, because she has the scientific mindset. I learn and humbly, humbly learn and listen from her. All right. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't even know if it would help her because from what she has told me, she's in a current 3D alignment right now. She may never find this channeling. I tend to try to hold the privacy of who I'm channeling. And I mean, if they're notable in the world, I may not even know that. 90% of the time, I do not. It's not really so much what I care about. I care about her message. All right. Are you ready to trance? Are the beings from the future different aspects of your own soul? Not to my awareness. I mean, in the overarching level teaching and oneness is true, everything is a part of everyone. But from the dualistic standpoint, I have not noticed channeling any aspects of myself in this unique way. I have unintentionally met children and grandchildren and things, and that was interesting. But this one in particular is not. She's not someone that I probably would ever eat. Sorry, I could tell I'm getting ready to channeling because the nose just starts running. Oh, this is interesting. I probably should go ahead and answer this. Someone says, I get confused about what 5D. It's a density of living. Some people think fifth dimension is a place where you're going to go. And this teaching that the whole 3D world is going to be left behind and we're going to be separated from our friends and our family. From my perspective and what I've learned in channeling and by locating into the future, and from my elders that I visited with humans from the past, that's not the way that time works. We're all interestingly entangled, and separation isn't true. So no matter how 5D you get, unless you drop the form and die, you don't actually get separated from your friends and loved ones. And this whole concept of being lifted into the sky and going elsewhere is just not my perspective. Yeah. Yeah. So fifth density is an interesting stream of consciousness that invigorates everything and shifts everything around you, but it starts with you. And you will still see people in third density perspectives, right? You'll still see that. That is what I learned. And we can have, the scientists who I'm channeling soon explain that as well in a more qualified scientific version. And I'm sure she has a better explanation from the quantum perspective than myself. But that is what she has explained to me in layman's terms. But yes, it's a vibration and it starts there, but it does begin to shift your world. But it's also like that world that you're living in, you will still see other versions of the old world. You will still see other people experiencing 3D. You will still see that, right? and you may feel aligned to help them, those who are experiencing the third density expression of Earth. So it's 3D Earth, 5D Earth running simultaneously, sharing that experience. That's how dimensionality works versus 3D Earth and 5D Earth somewhere else. There is another 5D Earth somewhere else, but that happens after, say, we drop this body. And even then, there's only like a perceived separation in personality, and that's only because we can't recognize the old personality if we have an attachment to it while we're alive. Does that make sense? Yeah, so she can go into it probably so much better than I can, but that is what I have learned from her so far. All right. Oh, so much nose running. I'm going to go let you meet our marine biologist and environmental scientist from 2028, and our facilitator will take over from here. Okay, there's our energy trail. There we are. Her husband's going to get her. We just found her. Last time when I followed this energy trail and attempted bilocation, it's I got tempted to reach out and physically touch one of her pets and got transported back, and then took 15 minutes trying to get back. So this was easier. Yeah. Touching people and living things is against one of the rules. I haven't gotten past that yet in bilocation. What questions do you have for her today, for our human from the future?
Okay. Hi, Carla. How are you? The first question here is, what is 3D Earth, and how did you reach 5D living? What is 5D Earth, and how did you reach 5D living?
What is 5D? Oh, she said, don't be so quick to rush off from me now. I've been waiting to meet an Irish person.
Woohoo, Carla.
You got to tell me where to visit.
You need to visit everywhere. It's such a beautiful country. You've got to go and see it.
Okay.
It's a small country, so you'll be able to see so much when you visit.
Okay. She said it with 5D Earth, She, in our current time frame, she said, I, in my current time frame, would not have the understanding that even you do. I, in this time frame, would explain it as a degree of quantum entanglement, which allows you to bring through a thought stream of higher consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have to be associated with a religion. It's the consciousness that depicts goodness. It doesn't matter what you believe in, and perhaps other scientists would concur. But I wasn't a cold, flat atheist at all. I believe in an ultimate source. And I can't tell you so much that I got from 3D to 5D because, again, it isn't a place to go. It is a density, an energy field, in the degree of quantum physics that perhaps my friend Ernest would explain, that we would identify with something that already exists, and then we remember it. We bring it into a certain alignment or a certain field of resonance, and we become entangled with it. Because, as you know, nothing can be created nor destroyed. So, one of the things I can tell you in third density living, in third dimensionality, is that I began to think about all the ways that I wanted to see Earth, particularly as a marine biologist. If I wanted to, say, think about all of the ways that the coral reefs were being absolutely blanched and desecrated, I would spend my time in bed crying. I couldn't teach people daily. I couldn't lead any expeditions. I couldn't do any research in Antarctica. I could not understand um, what could shift us from that to where we are today in 2028. And we have made the beginning stages of healing for coral reefs in our oceans, for marine life, for our shorelines, for um, what was once our rapidly depleting ozone. But you could not have shown that to me from a negative standpoint. So you must first begin there. You must stop focusing on all the ways that you feel controlled, all the ways that things are going badly, all the potentials, even scientifically, that you could bring into your reality. Give it up. Focus on how you want to create a quantum leap and a positive change. That is how I got there. And I can say that once I began to do that, it wasn't that I closed my eyes or ignored 3D Earth. It's that I knew how I wanted to live. And I knew that I wanted to begin my focus, both spiritually and scientifically, to be placed upon the beauty, the healing, the wholeness of Earth and all of its life forms. And once I began to do that, I began to see small shifts, small incremental shifts in major parts of the world, in science, in policy, in law, many world improvements. And I began to see a shift in positive thought streams. And the world did not feel so cloudy. And I would say this is just maybe the beginning stages of your 5D Earth. This is where you start. This is where you would currently be aligned most in your quantum field. And you can make it better. If you want it to be better, you can make it better. I'm in the process of making it better. You are in control of that. Remember that. No one is in control of you but you. And we can begin this journey together today in these conversations, talking about how to shift Earth into a beautiful, loving 5D environment, not just from the perspective of how to save our planet, but from the perspective of how to become more compassionate human beings, because that's what 5D Earth is about in this timeline, living a compassionate life.
Thank you, Carla. So it's a positive thought stream, a way of thinking that brings you into that. Then is that what you're saying?
That's the beginning of it, she
Yeah.
says.
Okay.
She says that's the beginning of it, but one must also comply by changing their lifestyle, shifting
Action.
into the service, into um,
Action.
daily habit forming of these thoughts, not just
Okay.
thinking you must act.
Okay. Thank you for that, Carla. The next question is, what is the state of plastic nanoparticles in the world's food chains, waterways, and soils?
I'd say in your current timeline, it is at an all-time high. In my current timeline for 5D Earth, it is 50% less than what your current usage of and what your current application and findings for nanoparticulates in food, soils, and water. We are at 50% less than you. And of course, we have a little ways to go. We've also made vast improvement in the ozone hole. And in your current 3D Earth alignment, of course, you have some ways to go. And luckily, the improvements in science are already there in your timeline. But here's the individual level of lifestyle change. Don't buy plastics. Maybe it's not that simple. But I would say work with what you already have, become resourceful, and seek out to utilize the different technologies that will become available to you in 2025, because that's when the biodegradable plastics became available in not just the private sector, but more of the public sector, and people were not simply just finding some degrees of exchangeability between plastics and other derivatives that were more bioavailable in commercial settings. People were given public access in their homes and in their environments at the end of 2025 to some of the technologies that help. And some of these technologies that help remove the nanoparticulates in water and soils were not only made available to the private sector, they were made available in 2026 for agriculturalists and for the farming industries. So much science is to come, and it's not up to you to create. It's already there for you, but you must be willing to research and seek it out. It's not as always as easily available in 2024, but it will be very soon.
That's really good to hear. Thank you, Carla. The next question, and you hit on a little bit of it there, is how is our ozone level and air quality from now to your time? What has happened to it?
She says it's massive right now. You are currently sitting at around maybe the last time we looked, 8 to 9 million square meters of ozone. And in 2024, you are at 4.2. So we would say that is a massive improvement for a 5D Earth, and we have a little ways to go. Again, this is the beginning stages of 5D Earth. Don't expect miracles overnight. Not everything is perfect, not even in a fifth dimensional environment. But this is the first beginning stages of 5D Earth from your 3D Earth density living and the people experiencing it. This is the alignment when it first begins to shift for you.
Okay. Thank you, Carla. Next question. Are we closer to extracting free energy from quantum space?
She says, okay, so I want to explain that Nothing is free because nothing can be extracted from negative space that isn't already there. So many of the quantum theorists who were exploring this from 2008 and already into 2024, 25, and 26 began some deeper explorations to evidence, and they found that they were simply creating from a source that wasn't negative. So it's not necessarily from a vacuum, but it is from space, and space is quite full. So, yes, if you arrange the atoms in a way that provides that unique environment, it looks like a vacuum, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's from negative space. And yes, in our environment, we are extracting free energy we're in the beginning stages of providing to the public sector free energy from these technologies.
That's cool. Thank you, Carla. Um, have there been public interactions with non human intelligence? And if so, what effect has this had on our planet?
She says, I was the least to believe that. I was the last to believe that. It began happening in the smaller, more private sectors in 2024. We had some things that perhaps people tried to identify as weather balloons, particularly Asian ones. And I remember at the time when that was happening. Um, in your time frame now, she says there was a Chinese weather balloon, and it was ridiculous, like how the conjecture and the conspiracy theories that were surrounding it. Um, but we had several more like it. And then we had several more that could not be identified as Chinese weather balloons. And that continued for 2024. Many people were able to experience and say that they were having unique extraterrestrial contact, which I at the time was highly skeptical about, and that was evidence to be true in 2025. And then in 2025, 2026, and 2027, we had three different extraterrestrial contacts that were in the public sector and were newsworthy.
Wow.
One in Las Vegas, one in Los Angeles, and one in Philadelphia in those years. And one of them brought some interesting technologies, and the person was just a rancher. He was credible in a certain sense that he didn't even believe in ET. So why would we trust why would anybody trust what he's saying? He's just a rancher. But on the other hand, people would say, oh, well, because you don't have belief or experiencing this, maybe we should listen. And he began to work with scientists to duplicate the technologies that were explained to him. And this is how we got a new form of water purification that is used all around the world today. But you'd have to do some research on that. But it began with this Texas rancher and his story.
Oh, that's really cool. Thanks, Carla.
And again, it was on the news. It's not like it's something that he claimed to have had a contact. It was a sighting. It was documented. And then some similar documents, some similar visits were documented and newsworthy in New Mexico in 2027 that provided a similar technology.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Are there any specific or new discoveries or understandings regarding Antarctica?
She says, yes, the first discovery that I wanted to bring to you was related to something that was discovered in your time frame and a new discovery about that discovery. So these two things were connected. There were some underground cavernous systems in Antarctica where these lakes were forming in these rivers and untouched, formed into glaciers. And people began to study that, and they found two more life forms in 2027. They found two life forms that are now helping leading biologists with a cure for a unique form of brain cancer. And they're also researching in hopes of a beginning stages of a cure for Alzheimer's in 2028 here today. So that research has just begun. And it began from these two creatures that were found from Ice Age times. And they were marine animals. They were not, mammoths or anything that walked the
Okay.
earth.
Wow. Wow, that's really incredible. Thank you so much for that and telling us about that, Carla.
She says there's another discovery involving krill that I wanted to mention, and we spent some time studying krill. I spent some time studying krill, but as did so many people who I know. And in my time frame now, it's been discovered that krill holds a unique. It was a unique discovery in ecology in the way that they regenerate the unique algae, the way that they work in ecology on the ocean floor. She describes it as being like that it regenerates life on the ocean floor, and that's been helping with the current problem that we have with coral reef blanching. That there's been a significant improvement in coral reef branching, and we've been able to regenerate much more coral because of this ecology from studying krill.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you, Carla. Did Europe manage to keep peace and not enter any war between our time and your time?
We can say that yes, Pamela did bring that question to me, and yes, they did avoid war. I couldn't say that it's anything they did specifically other than just staying out of most people's business. They had, unfortunately, some of their own economic problems that they had to address in the housing communities, and they were busy addressing that. And new labor laws that were more equanimous for everyone, particularly women. So there were many positive changes in Europe in relation to some of these things, and it was a busy 4 years. So I'd say that war was not something that Europe was interested in.
Okay. Would you have any advice to give any Europeans of our time from your perspective?
Mm. Some of you are holding out on home buying. She says it would be to your benefit to go ahead and bite the bullet and buy a home now because you're going to struggle otherwise. So do what you can, because here in 5D Earth, our mortgage rates in your country are exemplary, but it took a while to get there. And then there just wasn't enough homes by then, right? And you can always refinance, even if you have to bite the bullet now and refinance later because the interest rates drop. Isn't it a wonderful idea to at least have land in a home if you can?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And also, I was having another question here. What advice would you give to citizens of the US at the moment? Would you give them similar advice or something different?
She says, yes, I would give you a little bit of a different advice. I would say to wait to buy homes because your mortgage interest rates got nothing but higher this year. And then they notably dropped between June and July of 2025, and that was the perfect time to buy a home.
Okay.
So I would say in your current alignment, it began to get better then. And I live in the U.S., and here in the U.S., the housing percentages now are extremely different, very lower. Like it's right now, you can't in your timeline. I don't think that you can get a home lower than 6% interest rate, if I'm correct from what Pamela described to me. But you can get a home now for 4.2% interest rate. In most states in America. So just wait a little bit. That's what we are in 2028. However, in a certain sense, I don't think you're going to get to 4.2 by June to July of next year. That's not what I remember about it. It was still in the fives at the minimum. However, it's still wonderful to have home and land right now because things are shifting so quickly. And you want to have land to grow food on. And we can talk about those of you who don't. We can talk about that if you like. You can get into the nature of aquaponics, and you can grow your own food in stackable containers. And there are so many ways that you can do that beginning now, whether you own land or not. But if you are interested in it, it might be time to go ahead and consider if you're in Europe buying a home now.
Okay, thank you for that advice. Another question is, how does the Israel-Palestine situation resolve in your timeline?
She said, in my timeline, there were several peace treaties made and then broken as we went from 3D to 5D. They were made and then broken, but every time they were broken in a less severe manner and less people died. And I know that's not the answer that you wanted to hear. But in my current environment, we are in another peace treaty, and things are better than ever. It's the best that it has been in 50 years, particularly for women and children and women's rights.
And next question is, did the housing market in Australia crash or plateau? And if so, has it recovered in your timeline?
The housing market did not crash until there was a crash for what you could call it in 2027, and then it recovered again. Um, I'd say it's much more affordable though. We needed that. If you think about it, Australia, you needed that in a certain sense to be able to afford it because it was outlandish in third density living. And now many people can afford homes in Australia in 2028. And you have programs for those of you who can't. You have different policy that would provide you access to various programs, and it's easy to apply for those programs. And they aren't mortgages, they are unique programs for people who, for whatever reason, have fallen into ill times and cannot seem to get qualified for a mortgage that will help you. And it's a unique public service available in Australia and New Zealand now in 2028.
Thank you, Carla. Another question is, what advice would you give to citizens of South Africa?
You are doing so much better. I really was glad when Pamela brought this question to me and she said, should we ask about South Africa? And of course, I wanted to ask about every single country. And she said, we don't have time, but we had to mention South Africa specifically because there's so much corruption in your governmental leadership. And by the time another election comes about, you will have elected out a certain party that was responsible for that. And then you are headed into more, I'd say, of a fourth density environment in 2028 for South Africa, but it's so much better than the corruption that you were experiencing.
That's good. What can we do now on an individual level to help Earth transition to 5D?
She says, I don't know how many of you are going to want to hear this, but it requires individual thought stream consciousness shifts. Let's start there. When you wake up every day, would you like to begin to see a world of opportunity that awaits you, or do you see yourself as ill, repressed, controlled, hopeless? Can you possibly see hope outside of yourself, outside of the world's leadership, outside of politics, outside of religion, outside of 3D structures? Can you see that there is something in an evolved, loving higher consciousness other than the pain and suffering you are experiencing? And she says, if you can see that, you are 50% of the way there. That is the positive news. Because it can shift so rapidly. And I really wanted to express that to you. But on another hand, I also wanted to express that so many of you do not believe that. And this is why it took 4 years between 2024 and 2028 to begin a 5D living environment for Earth. And I'd say that the 5D living environment for Earth isn't the majority of the Earth. I'd say we're at maybe a 30% capacity, which is huge, but it's not all of us, right? We have a long way to go. Remember, 5 density experiences living alongside 3rd and 4th density experiences. Based upon consciousness and quantum entanglement, that is true. 5D isn't elsewhere. not until you're dead. And that's a different 5D. But the 5D that you are creating right now involves staying right where you are and becoming compassionate, loving, courageous, grace-oriented individuals. I borrowed those 2 words from Pamela yesterday. She said, I like that word, grace-oriented, and I stole it from her.
Thank you for that answer, Carla. This is a really good question because I've experienced something similar. Do you have any friends and family members in 3D, and how does this affect your relationship with them?
Oh, of course. She said, of course I do. She says, and it affects them because they want me to be kind of pulled into the mire of negative thinking sometimes, and I just won't be. But that doesn't hurt me. And sometimes I just have to pray for forgiveness over the situation that sometimes it hurts them. But in a true fifth density expression, in fifth dimensional living, how could that hurt me? I'm not hurt by it, you see? I don't want them or need them to become like me or to understand what I understand. I'm not attempting to convert anyone. This isn't religion. And even the concept of religion involves freedom for people to believe what they want to believe. So I feel that the most loving way to live is to allow my loved ones to continue believing what they want to believe. Now, am I also going to have a bit of an environmental agenda to share with them as they're willing to listen how to live compassionately? If they're willing to hear, certainly. But you know the old adage, for those who have ears to listen, it would be unloving for me to continue to preach at people or attempt to convert them. So they live the way that they are in their third density lifestyle. And this is why some of them, experience depression, anxiety, things of that nature.
Okay. Thank you for that answer, Carla. Next question. What major world events happened in 5D Earth and 3D Earth?
There's too many to list, she says. In 2024, Texas almost seceded. Yeah. In 2024, we had, and this may not surprise you because it happened from what I remember Pamela saying in either 2022 or 2023, some freezing during unprecedented seasonal shifts like cold in summertime, things like that. We had some unusually warm weather predicaments that were very indicative of climate change being terrible. But as you can see, it did not turn out that way. In the fifth 5D Earth potential, we have shifted the ozone layer dramatically, by more than half. We have shifted. We are beginning to grow coral reefs. There are so many things that are shifting, but with major world events on the major world forums, I can say that you have avoided civil war. I can say that you had a presidential US leader come in and become very ill and have to step down. I can say that you had some interesting voting policies shift based upon the election coming up. I can say that you had, like I said earlier, the extraterrestrial encounters. We've already gone over that. That was on world pages. That was very newsworthy. Insofar as natural disasters, they were everywhere for 3D Earth. Absolutely everywhere. There was so much natural disaster in 3D density Earth. But as you began to shift, that began to calm down. And that began to calm down, particularly for the Western United States. You began to experience unusual things, like avoiding what was predicted to be an unprecedented drought in western slopes of Colorado, like avoiding some problems in EPA policies in terms of food production, and then shifting those policies for more compassionate manners of food production. That was on my world stage. But my world stage in the fifth dimensional living may be quite different than what you would want on your world stage if you have 3D concerns. But I don't have those concerns, so you would need to be very specific with me for me to address a third dimensional concern from a fifth dimensional perspective. Do you understand?
I do. Thank you so much, Carla. Could you tell us a little bit about how growing food has changed? Maybe a little bit about the types of farming or soil regeneration, anything like that?
I can happily say that there has been so much shift in EPA policy shifting to more loving, compassionate laws and regulations. I can say that many of the older style industrialized agriculture and Dust Bowl means of conventional plot agriculture is beginning to go away. I don't know too many people that are still doing that at a wide scale because most of us are in preference of growing our own foods, the utilization of co-ops, and regenerative agriculture. And this is how we began our fifth dimensional experiencing. But she says, insofar as food production at a mass scale with grocery store chains and whatnot, um, that has shifted because as you begin to see how food became more loving, more green, more compassionate, um, that transferred to your wide scale chains and grocery stores so that you still have them, but people prefer co ops. You still have them, but when you do have to go, you tend to avoid, you know, certain sections and you just live a cleaner lifestyle. You still have choices for people in grocery stores for people that want 3D living because again, when you have 3D life and 5D life side by side, that's how
Mm,
time works. You will have a grocery store to honor both. Do you understand how that works?
okay.
Yeah.
And have there been any widespread food shortages or anything like that in the world?
She said, you had in 2027, you were recovering from an epidemic that began as a bit of it's a candida fungus situated in the marshlands of um, central north US. That fungus began to spread and it was highly contagious, but not by air, thankfully. And that caused, I wouldn't say food shortages directly, but more of supply chain problems
Okay.
from the east to the west. So you would have supply chain problems in the more rural environments for a little while, particularly in 2027.
Okay.
And
Um,
then in other areas of the world, you didn't have as much. I can't really say that I remember too much, with the exception of what you already know for third world countries, unfortunately. But in 5D, even a lot of I do need to express that a lot of the first world countries are helping and assisting third world countries with drought, famine, water purification issues. Africa has more man-made reservoirs and water purification systems. They have built different permaculture now, thanks to help from some of their own sources and first world countries who were compassionate enough to want to help and assist.
okay. Have you any advice you can give people here today about how to improve our soil and planting?
She says, yes, many people, if you feel overwhelmed about regenerative agriculture and composting, start there because I remember that's where you started. But start out with smaller potted containers. Start out with some small component of hydroponics. They aren't that expensive to learn how to do. Composting is not that expensive at all. My best advice for you is to start where you are in your homes and in your small windowsill gardens. And if you're in the city, you can start to plant in that way in small potted containers and start there. If you have larger plots of land, I would say start with the copper assistance. We began to create copper grids, and that's in use now fully in even some of the larger regenerative agricultural farms. So use the technology that we're now calling copper gridding.
Okay, thank you for that. Um, do we have more ethical, heart-centered, collaborative leaders who work together for the citizens and the planet in your timeline?
She says we definitely do. We had, you know, some leaders shift. Like we had a Canadian leader, make a huge shift, and many people just kind of felt that he was friendly insofar as talking a good game, but not necessarily implementing environmental policy to the maximum that could help. And he began to open his heart and create new policy for Canadians, specifically in more loving, less industrialized agriculture. So I was skeptical. I was skeptical to see a Canadian leader do that at the time, and he's in office now. So I was skeptical. He didn't step down, he stepped up. And that surprised me. I wasn't a fan of his. I would say that it's not so much that every country is on the 5D lifestyle and 5/5 density living. So I can't say that I'm going to go through every single world leader, because the majority of China is not living in this style. The communism still exists, and it's very much a third density style for China. But then you have more compassionate leaders stepping up in Japan. You have um, so so much more than you've ever had before. Is it perfect? No, but it's the beginning stages of having the leaders that you already have either step down or step up. So we've had plenty of U.S. policymakers step down, U.S. Congress members step down, or step out due to illness. You've had many interesting things, happen that would cause them to go into say a suggested retirement if they were in a third density lifestyle that would be of harm. And then the people that replaced them were of a 5D compassionate mindset. So much of that has come in for the US and Canada specifically, and a lot for Ireland as well, not so much for the UK, a lot for South Africa, but not so much for Africa. We still need a lot of help. Chile has made some expensive improvements, but we just have it's so much. Like I said, only 30% of the world would be living in 5D Earth in this current alignment for 2028.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Next question. What are your observations about the level of flooding in the UK and Ireland? And they just want to know, is it mostly coastal or does it go inland?
She said it is mostly inland and not coastal. Granted, there were moments of coastal flooding, but not half as many as there had ever been in your past. Mostly it is inland flooding from central Ireland.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Carla. Next question. Are there any organic compounds and agricultural chemicals that are used as plant growth regulators in our current timeline, which are banned in your timeline?
Yeah, there are definitely this one well-known plant growth hormone regulator that is now banned because it was affecting reproduction in women. So that one was banned.
Are you allowed to give us the name or?
She can't pronounce it. It's like chloro something.
Okay,
Yeah.
no worries. I'd struggle too, Carla. Next question is regarding North Korea. Has there been any uprisings or are things the same since 2024?
In North Korea is primarily in a third density, third dimensional expression, and there has been an uprising. And they have invaded another country, and there had to be the best way I could put it is many other, the United Nations had to come in to handle it. Many other people had to come in at the governmental levels to talk to each other from around the world to determine how to set this leader at rest. And in our timeline, he is at rest. We wouldn't say that it's at peace because it's a North Korea is still in a third dimensional expression, but the uprising has ceased
Okay.
for now.
Okay. Next question is, how is the topography of the 2028 Californian coastline? Did it change drastically since 2024?
We in third dimensional expression, there has been about a 2.5 feet worth of a loss for that area. And that's an area that I hold strong interest in personally. So that tells you a little bit about the natural disasters headed your way in the coming years in the third dimensional Earth. For fifth dimensional Earth, we're looking at it. We saw that happened, and we began to do what we can to recover our marine life, to recover human life as well, to recover the shorelines, and we made significant improvements.
And they also wondered, where did people migrate to then?
Colorado, you're not going to be surprised, but you know where Californians go. They go primarily. They went to Utah, Colorado, and Arizona.
Okay. Thank you for that. Carla, would you have any advice for Canadian citizens?
I would say that right now you are the leaders in fifth dimensional living. And in my timeline, you are as well. I'd say the same for Ireland. So my advice to you is continue holding a positive thought stream. Continue understanding a little bit more about how you wish to vote. Continue understanding more about your own lives. But a lot of the things that shift in fifth dimensional Earth begin with people having their eyes on Canada and following the way that you make changes in environmental policy, the way that you make shifts in your lifestyle, the way that you make shifts in your government. And many of the world, we can say here in 5D Earth, in my expression, that we look towards Canada as compassionate policy leaders of change and transformation.
Cool. Thank you, Carla. Another question. Will Japan experience more damaging earthquakes, tsunamis, or the tectonic plate shifts? Has anything like that happened since 2024?
For those experiencing third dimensional Earth, yes, you have had more earthquakes. You've had 2 major earthquakes since then. You've had 1 major tsunami. And in 5D Earth today, now you know what you can do to prevent damage from such, and your engineering is beyond reproach. You are absolute geniuses at knowing how to stop flooding and even how to stop a tsunami. You've made tremendous change in that as well. So you are leaders in that field, and people from all around the world in 3D Earth look towards you for help, and not to prevent a tsunami, but to prevent its damage.
Okay.
No one can prevent a tsunami in 3D.
Okay. The next question, if somebody's wondering, has there been any advancements on a cure for neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's?
There have been some significant advancements for both Alzheimer's, and they're in the beginning stages of not curing Parkinson's, but there's a deep observation right now on how to awaken Parkinson's patients, not fully, but even a little bit at a time. And we are making some headway on 5D Earth with having slow awakening in Parkinson's patients.
That's good news. Another question: how is airline travel? Has it been halted at any stage with the magnetic pole shifts and stuff like that?
In 3D Earth potential, I wouldn't say that it's always from the magnetic pole
Okay.
shifts because that happened a couple of times and then you shifted out of that potential. And then it's that um, in 3D, corporate greed is the best way I can call it. You just wanted to fly planes when you shouldn't be flying planes due to just too many tropical storms and natural disasters, and you wanted to continue flying planes during them, which is just silly on the half of the 3D world's you know air department.
So did that go well for them?
Well, we had some near misses. We've had,
Okay.
quite a few. I'd say 3 accidents in the past few years on 3D Earth, as climate changes are shifting and then recovering and shifting and recovering, which has kind of been the nature of things. We don't have too many climate issues at all. We're just in recovery mode on 5D Earth now and living beautifully. But I could say that airline travel did stop for some time, but I wouldn't implement it. I wouldn't say that it would be from geomagnetic shifting because the first couple times that happened, you lost, you lost a Boeing 747 between the UK and Ireland in 2027, and you actually learned from that and shifted and you began to create new devices to prevent that, so you don't utilize the same systems anymore. Even those systems are shifting and changing and you're applying new engineering to prevent that. So
Was
you don't
there
have them
any
grounded.
accidents in 2024 on planes, Carla? I'm asking you a personal question now.
She says not in the US or the UK, not any major airlines in the US, UK, or Canada, but you did have a Malaysian airline problem in 2025.
Okay.
And some people were comparing it to a disaster that you had quite a long time ago with a Malaysian loss of a flight.
Yeah.
And they were comparing that because it took them a while to find the flight equipment and the beings.
Okay. Thank you for that, Carla. I appreciate that. Another question here: has the World Economic Forum dissolved?
I would not say that it is dissolved, but it has uplifted itself.
Okay.
You're not going to believe that, but we just have more compassionate people in that position. A lot of the old money has died off. A lot of the old the ways, of third density living. Those beings are no longer here, or suddenly stepped out of the picture, or just not in control in 5D Earth.
Okay. And another question that somebody else had is: has the World Health Organization dissolved?
The same answer is what I would have. We have a World Health Organization, but many have stepped down or they have stepped up in their consciousness.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are people around the world living more sustainable lives? Like, are the cities greener and self-sustaining? Somebody wants to know.
She said, I would say that you're really getting there, even in third density living, that you're beginning to understand how important it is for your health and for the health of the planet. But especially in 5D Earth, most people are living sustainably.
Okay. Another question: does social security still exist in 2028, and is it attainable?
I'd say from what I know right now, it does exist. I'm not on it, but some of my friends and family are on it, and it does exist and it is attainable.
Okay. How are senior living communities doing?
She said they are much different than it is. It's much more compassionate. These days, no one can really afford them, and the senior living communities are primarily in 2024 underpaid and or they're not paid well by Medicare and Medicaid systems in the U.S. So for the U.S., I'd say that compared to what you have now,
Mm,
there have been much more compassionate policy changes. And now you have people that, police these systems other than ombudsman. You
okay.
you have governmental policy, you have the state that is more responsible. So they're much more policed, and they are given more grants to support the elderly. So when people can't afford a home, but they need a home for memory care or for stroke care or for general elder living, particularly in skilled nursing facilities, as well as assisting nursing facilities, they will be given grants that are from the government to be able to supplement the home, and that way their families don't worry about it and they don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Does the European Union still exist, Carla?
She said, I'm going to tell you, this is an add-on to my former answer.
Okay.
It exists. Many people have died off and carried out the old ways with them, and some newbies have been added that are younger, fresh young blood, and ready for justice and equality, particularly in the 3D, in the 5D realms. I'd say that, of course, we have EU, but again, it's people are willing to work together for the good of everyone now, not just their own countries. That's what's different in the world, not just in the UK, but in the world.
Okay. Um, we just have a question here. That could you give a typical day in the life of a 5D person?
She said, I'd say that working is a little different because people have more freedom to work from their homes. Many people work virtually, as some of you do now.
Okay.
Um, there's much less control. You have much more protection in terms of policy changes that affect the workplace environment. You have many more human rights applied to the workplace. You have in the US much more maternity leave, both maternal and paternal. I just wanted to say that. But in the daily living, you still go to jobs, but you go to jobs that you tend to create because you love them. You're much more independent in this realm, in this particular timeline that I'm in. You are much more self-employed, or you have created many more nonprofits exist. And the few of you that do still work for corporations are helping to uplift the environment, uplift the corporate environment. And the corporate environment is a much more loving place to work in 2028 than it ever has been before. In 3D environments, we've made significant improvements in 5D environments in the workplace.
That's good to know. How's the channel doing? Is she okay?
She appears to be. The last time she wasn't, she faded away.
Okay.
And then I didn't see her for 2 hours earlier today. So now she seems to be holding form.
Okay. Thank you, Carla. Question here: has the Vatican met its downfall?
She says, yes and no. The old policies aren't the same, not as much as hidden.
Okay.
Religions still exist, but they are much more loving. The right to believe what you want to believe is very fifth dimensional. Not everyone is going to experience fifth dimensional as being non-religious, or that higher consciousness means that you believe in just a new age lifestyle. So I need you to think in the entirety of everyone else's belief system, what is entirely compassionate, and that is what 5D is about. It's not about bringing down another person's religion, but about giving them the right to believe what they want to believe without harming anyone else. So this is what changed many corrupt leaders. were pulled and extricated from the Roman Catholic Church in your next 4-year timeline.
Wow.
What has also changed is people can marry no matter what you believe in. You can marry in the church if you wish. We're in the beginning stages of shifting that.
Wow.
So some major changes have happened in the fifth dimensional life for that religion, but it does still exist.
Okay.
You do still have a pope,
Okay.
and his consciousness has shifted dramatically.
Wow. Thank you for that, Carla. What environmental changes have occurred in Italy from 2024 to 2028?
In 3D Earth, you experienced a supervolcano in northern Italy that disrupted and killed hundreds of people in a surrounding small village. The topography of the Italy coastline was affected from this. It wasn't easy to contain. Just primarily that this was the biggest thing. Everything else about Italy topography recovered easily. Farming is different now. You have more regenerative agriculture. That trend has spread throughout Italy. There are many things I could say about Italy, but the shifts in your shores were dramatic because of that.
And what year did a lot of that happen, Carla?
In 2027.
2027. Okay. Thank you for that information. Is the war in Ukraine still occurring?
She said, I would say that it is no longer called a war, and things have toned down, and peace treaties have been signed, agreed, and met. Everything is calmer now. We do not call it a war. It's not a war anymore.
Okay. Have produce prices remained steady or have they gone up?
It is much more affordable for everyone in 5D Earth. They have not gone up.
Okay. Have you any advice for citizens from India?
She said, I would say with India, be mindful in 3D India of yourselves. Use, in your belief systems, it's some of the highest vibrational systems in the world because your religions require a connection to yourself and to earth and to other people. What is different about India now is that you no longer have the word untouchable. Everyone is touchable. In a certain sense, that's been wonderful. Another thing, you cleaned up your rivers. With the help of all of the new science, the new environmental science policies, and the new technologies that have been given you, you cleaned up many of your major rivers.
That's good. I have a question here. What is the bee population like? Is it increasing or decreasing, Carla?
She says it is absolutely increasing in our timeline and getting better by the day. We have the highest bee population since 1979.
Wow, that's really good. And do you still have polar bears, Carla?
In our timeline, we absolutely do. On 3D Earth, some of the polar bears had to adapt and begin to learn how to live on land. And then they began to repopulate. And as we began to recover and the ice sheets began to recover and refreeze in time in the fifth density environments, we now have more ice sheets than ever before. And that is shifting. So now we're getting some return of polar bears.
Okay, cool.
And we're recovering.
Can you tell us a little bit about any educational modalities for children and young adults?
She said, I could say that a lot of the education for children, the shifts that we have in 5D Earth are that we allow children to be more individually instructed in their own unique learning styles. We don't have as many attendance-based schools because not everybody operates that way. Some children are more set to learn in their own way and in their own timing and on their own certain times of the day. Some children learn more virtually, as you already are discovering. But in our timeline, we have created schools that are not as stringent in attendance policies or in educational policies that are absolutely mandated for graduation. We've added much more in terms of arts. The arts programs are much more supported all around the US and Canada and around the world. Um, and much more of our money has been put into education for our young systems and grants for education for our young adults in not just in elementary schools, but in um, doctoral work as well. But a doctoral candidate need not feel that they absolutely have to finish their doctoral studies in order to be qualified for some of the higher paid positions. It's about your experience in the field now, more than ever than it would be about what education you do or you don't have. So many things, I would say, have shifted in terms of what even qualifies you to hold a well paid job. What qualifies you is your experience, not just your education. What qualifies you is your passion. What qualifies you is a good recommendation. What qualifies you is the ability to learn.
Okay. That's good news, Carla. Thank you. Um, how has our health progressed? Are people healthier overall? Are they more conscious of their health?
She said, we find that people are, according to recent statistics, less likely, women between the ages of 25 and 50 are less likely to have breast cancer or cervical cancer. We find that many people in all age brackets are less likely to have lung cancer because guess what? You don't smoke. You don't do things that are detrimental to your body in a fifth density lifestyle. You just don't. Why would you? You don't see the sense in it. Therefore, your health is tremendously better, and that's based upon your decision um, to live differently. Does that answer your question, or did you want me to expand upon it
No,
differently?
that covers it, Carla.
Yeah.
Um, what happens with the prices of gold and silver? We have someone wanting to know a little bit about that.
She said the price of silver kept going down for a while. It would plateau and then go down and then plateau again and then go down. And many of you are ultimately concerned between 2024 and 2027. But here in 5D Earth in 2028, the prices of silver and gold are very, very high. So for silver, it's gone up by 50%. For gold, it's gone up by 30%
Okay.
from where you are now.
Okay. Thank you for that, Carla. Another person would like to know, what will access to seeds be like? Is it like saving our own or exchanging? Kind of how will people get seeds to grow?
She said many people in a fifth dimensional lifestyle do prefer to save seeds. Seed exchange is not as controlled, um, because we aren't as concerned about invasive species. So we can legally exchange seeds in different ways. So the policies on that from environmental legislature around the world has led up significantly. So we can exchange seeds because our grow zones are different.
Okay.
We've had so much natural disaster just over the course of the past 4 years in 3D Earth that we've had to recover from. So now we are happy to exchange, save, and utilize seeds. And we have a lot more of a circulation of heirloom seeds being exchanged and grown now. Many people are, or the return of heirloom agriculture is really popular right now.
Wow, that's good to know. Thank you for that, Carla. Um, Somebody else wants to know, how is the structure of 5D society different from 3D? And they're talking about the example, let's say, looking at the legal system. Has that changed?
She said the legal system is different because it isn't so quick, particularly in the US. I am a US citizen, so I speak through that filter. So for the US, for example, I can say that the legal system for criminal law is much more compassionate. The idea that someone just can be put down in an electric chair manner, or lethal injection, that we don't have that in 5D. And for any of you who still want that, I urge you to ask yourself why you would want someone to be put to death. What circumstance would you give in a true 5D environment? If you truly are an expression of love and compassion, would you want anyone to be put to death regardless? We deeply had to consider that in legislature. So when it comes to criminal justice, that's something, for example, that is different. That would have to be an extreme circumstance with so much time and approval to get someone put to death because we think that we want to play God and that they deserve it. That is not in fifth density environment, yet it's still tried and true. And many people are talking out both sides of their mouths. And forgive me for saying it, but you can't be wanting a fifth dimensional lifestyle. You are in a third density environment if you still want people to be put to death. And that is the truth of it. And that 3D still has that alive and well, unfortunately, in their criminal justice systems. But that's just one example.
Okay. Thank you for that example. How is Mongolia faring with relation to climate? Is there anything they can do to improve their future?
I'd say places like Mongolia and Patagonia are some of the world leaders who were deeply protected, that world leaders in landmass that were deeply protected, and they did not have as much climate change affect them. And they also were able to restore their lands very well.
Okay.
So they are growing very well in their regenerative agriculture.
Another question on houses. Will houses be built via 3D printing or by using the prefab house building approach?
That was a trend for a while.
Okay.
It was a trend for a while. And then that was from 2024 all the way to 2027. And we do still have homes, but that are made from prefab in 2028, 50 living. But mostly we have container homes, and they are built very, very differently from unique biodegradable things that would just withstand almost anything and are affordable to almost anyone. But we don't call them prefab homes because they're not made in this manner where they could just fall apart. They're incredibly durable.
Thank you, Carla. Is there anything we can do to prevent the likelihood of a tsunami in Thailand?
For your third density life, it's what you would need to do is to begin to shift your consciousness without focusing in on that all the time. Just focus in on the life that you want to live and sharing that love in deep service to earth and deep service to your lands and the waters and the ocean and all the animals and creatures in it. Start there. I don't want to say in 3D that something can't be prevented. I don't believe that. So I would say start there.
Okay. The next question is, how does homelessness look in 5D?
She said, I'm glad that you asked because homelessness is a healthy choice in 5D Earth. Some people choose to be homeless, and you're doing this. You're leaders in this right now. You have van life, right? So that's the beginning. But we have homelessness in a different way. We have people who choose to live on lands, and they get grants from the government to be homeless if they choose to regenerate the property.
Okay.
So say you want to go camp out in the street corner of New York City. What are you going to do to serve that street corner? That's how we look at it.
Yeah. I like that.
We don't have as many, alcohol addiction, drug addicted homeless. We don't have that.
Okay.
We have people who want to do it for different reasons, not because they're forced to do it. We have so many systems for the homeless that when people choose homelessness, they do this not out of desperation or pain or addiction.
Okay.
They do it in a different manner of service.
Thank you, Carla. Next question is, are there any animals or even ocean life that have become extinct? And is there anything that we can do in our timeline to try and prevent this?
She said, we're on it and you're on it. We're finding ways to prevent further blanching and desecration of our coral reef life. And it took some time. We lost so much of our coral reefs. And then we began to create ways to help implement a new thriving sustainable ecology. The krill especially were involved in regenerating our ocean soil and all of the sea life there. So we began to study them. But generally speaking, there's a lot that we can do. I mean, it's the obvious thing in 3D life. We don't have to use plastics just for the sake of convenience factor. If you're out somewhere and you have a plastic water bottle, use that plastic water bottle. Don't. That's not very 5D to say beat yourself up over the fact that you already have plastic. Use what you have. Use it. Use it, and then donate it to somebody who can use it, and then they will use it. And eventually all those plastics will be biodegradable, and they will that will shift. We've gotten rid of a lot of plastics. So hopefully that would be the beginning stages of answering your question. Did you need me to elaborate further?
No, that's okay, Carla. Thank you very much. Another person asks, what do you eat in a typical day, Carla? Is there any particular reason why you would eat that way?
Like,
do you eat meat or fish or fruit or veg, or is there something you don't eat or anything like that?
I don't eat animals. I just don't. I don't find it a compassionate way of living, nor do most people in this 5D timeline. We just don't eat animals, and we don't have to because we have so much advancement in food technology, in health technology, and we have medical technology that is advanced. And if you suffer from anemia, types of anemia, and B12 deficiencies and deficiencies that would deplete your body of certain vital nutrients that you would typically get from meat, there's a different education system available to you that would teach you how to get it from plants. And we also have different plants that we are beginning to regenerate from older heirloom seeds that provide that, because our soil biome is more healthy and more mineral replenished. And you may not believe this because you're in a current state of 3D awareness where it is quite the opposite, but we have made tremendous progress on this timeline.
Okay.
So I eat the only thing occasionally I do have to eat for the omegas would be fish. I will have some occasional fish.
Okay.
And I will make sure that it would be, so I can't really call myself full vegan because I will have some occasional wild caught fish. And it's something that my husband and I like to do. We like to go out and go on, certain expeditions just off by ourselves fishing and whatnot, and we'll eat the fish. So occasionally I do need to eat that.
Okay. How's the channel doing? We're going on for quite a long time now. We're an hour and a half into this.
There's a little bit of fading around, but not as much.
Okay. Well, I'll go with another few questions, and we can kind of do them as quick fire if you want as well, Carla. And if you feel you need to add more, then do as well. So, did China invade Taiwan?
In that 3D timeline, yes, they did.
Okay. Next question. Has Russia tamed its approach to acquiring others' land masses?
Yes, even in a 3D timeline, that toned down.
Wow.
You shifted that. And then that was really one thing that really needed to happen as a predecessor towards the world going into more of a 5D timeline to get to the strong percentage of almost 30% of people living in 5D. That was the first thing to begin to happen that preceded.
That's good news. Yes. What technologies are we using to clean our oceans, Carla?
We have various technologies, and we extract plastics from the ocean. We still do that in mass ways. We have machines that can do that very, very quickly now.
Okay.
And we also, what's different about that, and that's just for recovery, we
Okay.
also have to have recovery by cleaning the petroleum that's been dumped all over the oceans. We have developed technology to clean that.
Okay.
And in lakes and rivers everywhere, not just in the US, but around the world, we have vast amounts of technology that help with that.
Okay.
So let's say it's vastly different in that realm now.
Okay. Do we still have the IRS in the US, and does it work the same?
She said, "Oh, what are you saying? Old dogs didn't learn new tricks for quite some time, and they also had to just die off." She she said some of those old dogs had to be put to death. She said, "Don't worry, nobody got killed in the process. It's just a metaphor." So what we mean by that is we had to change. She said we had to change some policy about the amount of control that the IRS would have in coming in and taking over and having such direct
Okay.
access to people's funds, particularly when people just didn't have anything to pay them. It just wasn't ethical. So of course we have an IRS. We have to have a tax system, but it runs very, very differently now. The taxes are not as high, and also the taxes are not, our tax law and position is quite different in a 50 environment.
Okay. How are we managing and healing ADHD in our youth?
She said, what I've observed is that we medicate less
Okay.
and we educate more. We have really utilized a lot of brainwave technology since then, and neuroscience has developed brainwave technology that people can get from a grant. If you can't afford it, you can get from a grant from your province or your state,
Okay.
and it can be applied multiple times a day. And there are even brainwave technologies now that can be applied on. She points to this part of her thumb, on this part of the thumb. It's just like right here, and there's like a little. She's got one to show me, and she looks like sort of like the pulse oximeter or whatever it is that you put, except that
Oh, yeah.
it also like has one line that runs up here, one line that runs up here, and it goes down into here, and there's the little red energy that's there. And she said that does something to stimulate the brain in a unique way to immediately calm down some of the impulses and some of the impulsivity in ADHD sufferers, and it's safe for children. So
Okay.
we could go on and on about the shifts in ADHD awareness and the new technologies and new discoveries. There just have been so much, not just for ADHD sufferers in children and adults, but for anyone on the spectrum.
Okay. Thank you for that, Carla.
Much less medication.
That's good. Very good.
We don't even have, she said, we don't even have those same horrendous medications that would just be prescribed like lithium. No one's on lithium anymore, for goodness sake.
Okay. That's good to know. What key understandings do you wish for teachers to teach children now in 2024? And what experiences would you like our children to have?
She says, as a mother, I would really love to answer this question in that, insofar as I know what I would want my two kids to have, and um, if they were, kids in your time frame, um, and they aren't. So I would say if they were kids, though, I would want the same thing that I would have wanted back when they were kids. I want teachers to give them more equanimous environments. I want them to feel safer to be themselves. I wish for teachers to be more fairly compensated as well, so that they would not be so exhausted in your timeline. We don't have any of that in our timeline. School is so different in 5D Earth now. And I'm hoping that you can just teach children that they are safe and that they are loved no matter what is going on in their home environment, and teach them less pressure from the educational system and more interdependence.
Okay.
But I certainly would promote teachings that were more compassionate.
Okay. Thank you for that, Carla. How does war and uprising in the 3D timeline of Earth affect you in the 5D timeline?
She said, we see it happening. Again,
Okay.
3D Earth and 5D Earth aren't in separate environment. That's not how quantum entanglement works. That's not quantum physics. That's the 5D that people talk about when you die. But you're not dead. You're alive, here, together, now, sharing density experiences. And you could perceive this a little bit like if you were to look at the screen in air traffic control and you see planes flying close to each other. She goes like that and in and out of each other's awareness. So I am aware of uprising and wars. I am compassionate towards them, but don't be mad. I cannot become too upset about them or then I can't help. I remain solidified in a compassionate environment so that we can assist, and we do assist.
That's good. Thank you for that, Carla. Are invasive species still a concern with global transference, with packages, and with traveling?
She said, as I was stating earlier, it's that because we have different grow zones and the grow zones have expanded because our climate shifts have just recovered so wonderfully, and climate change is so much less of a problem now that we've recovered so wonderfully. We want more diverse grow zones. We want more diverse environments. We are less threatened by more diverse environments. So I wouldn't say it's as much of a problem. We're aware of it, but it's not as strict of a concern in policy.
Okay. Thank you, Carla. What does humanity's current carbon imprint look like in your timeline, Carla?
She said, I would have to go through that country by country because there's no exact percentage that I could give you on 3D Earth versus 5D Earth for humanity's carbon imprint. But say, for instance, your human carbon imprint right now in 2024 is the highest that it has ever been. You're aware of that. So right now in 2025, your carbon imprint for the US is four tons. That's tremendous improvement.
Okay.
Tremendous improvement. We have a little ways to go, obviously, but it's
Yeah.
tremendous improvement. And that's just one example.
Okay. Thank you for that. Does concern over heavy metal toxicity exist in your timeline, Carla?
She said, absolutely not, because we have clean waters.
Okay. Okay. What can you tell us about the British monarchy and the roles they play in a 5D Britain?
She said, I can tell you that King Charles is still alive and well. He has made a dramatic shift. It's if something about that illness that he had, that cancer, he caught it early, he recovered. He recovered well, but something shifted and he began to shift some policy. And then his children began to shift some policy along with him and inspire him to shift policy.
Oh, that's good.
So he began to make some shifts and changes. And he, I would say, would be the first person. He's still here with us in the world today and is still king. And his goal is that when his son one day becomes king, that he will carry along these beautiful policies that will have shift by the time you reach this timeline.
Thank you, Carla. Next question. Is the medical and pharmaceutical industry more connected with holistic methods of treatment?
She said, yes, absolutely. It's much better at this time because, say, for example, in 5D Earth, say, for instance, chemotherapy. That would be a last case resort. Not many people really ever do that anymore. And the ones that do, have chemotherapy made strictly from plants and are it's a completely different environment and it's a lot less toxic, for instance. So that has shifted,
Okay.
and that took a long time to shift. But chemotherapy would be a last case response because we have so many other options.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll just go for another few questions. How's the channel doing?
It's starting to get to
Yeah.
its maximum level.
Okay, I have one or two really quick fire questions, Carla. Just hang in with me. Are the big food companies controlling the food we eat still?
She said, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Everyone is so much more interdependent. You came together to create those changes.
Excellent.
And thanks to you, we have a wonderful green earth beginning again today, regenerating itself.
That's good news. And what is the most important and relevant development in the field of ecology and oceanography in your timeline?
The development in the krill really helped us with
Okay.
the ocean floor ecology, the development and discoveries of the interesting secretions from the krill that could help us regenerate the life on the ocean floor, and then a lot of discoveries involving the ecology of the reef that are currently being implemented today. That continued, and that helped.
Um, so the next question is the world population decreasing or increasing in your time?
She said it's increasing, but not at such a drastic rate as it would be in your time. It's increasing.
Okay, okay. And is there any specific foods or goods or products that we're using now that you'd be saying to us, stop using them or don't be using that anymore?
She said, I'm glad you asked, and let's start with petroleum.
Okay.
Granted, that's going to feel impossible for you because I know petroleum's in everything. It's in your computer parts, it's in your phone parts, it's everywhere. But in our time, we've developed a lot of parts that are not petroleum based. So maybe you can decrease your usage, not buying the phones as often, not buying the technologies as often as you are. If everyone today begin to decrease their technology uses, not buying things just for the sake of having the next new phone, for instance,
Okay.
that would be a good start.
Yeah.
But I would say that we could stop using petroleum in time because we have severely decreased the use of petroleum products in our 5D world. And I would say with food that we could all consider the cessation of industrialized farming, and just understanding how if you would just go visit one and see for yourself, and maybe you would not want to eat that any further.
Okay. I have two last questions from me to you, Carla. I want to know what you do for fun.
She said, I fish, I camp,
Oh, nice.
I like to walk on the shorelines. I like to just spend time with my family. I've always been a really down to earth person, but open in science, open in spirit, open in my heart. Um, but I like to eat. I like to cook. I like to fish.
I like that.
Yeah, all of
That
the
sounds fun.
anything in nature.
Nice. And can you tell me what type of music you listen to, Carla? Are you listening to the oldies? Or is it all modern music you're listening to?
She said, I'm a Beatles fan, but
Woohoo!
I'm a Beatles fan. And I like some Eric Clapton. I like some good old classics, but I really love most more than anything. I just like pure, calm classical music of all varieties, particularly Handel and Grieg.
Nice. Carla, thank you so much for answering all our questions today and hanging in there with all the questions we had. It was lovely to meet you, and hopefully you might come back again to see us.
She said, thank you very much. You didn't tell her that much about Aaralyn, so she's going to have to bug you some other day.
Do you have pets, Carla?
She said, I do. I do have pets.
You have a cat, do you?
Yes.
Yay. Thank you again, Carla.
You're welcome.
You just bring the channel back.
Now I know why. Um, like I don't like take my like say this microphone and put it directly in front of me. I remember when I was on Next Level Soul, he said, put the microphone right in front of you. And I thought, if I do the thing where I come out of my body, I'm gonna smack my head on the microphone. I didn't do it, but that's why I turn on my microphone I use for music because it'll pick up the whole room and just stay so far away from me because sometimes I'll smack my head on the microphone. It's so silly. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being here in this channeling of this future human. I have so many more of them on this channel, not in the live portion of my videos, but in just the regular videos. Just scroll through, you'll see plenty more. And if you want more of them, as always, on my Patreon channel, there are, I don't know how long we've been doing them there, but you know how you have little clips of them here? We have them in length, the full ones on my Patreon channel. So you can find them there as well. Is there anything else I'm missing? Oh, like and subscribe, please. I really, really appreciate like, subscribe, share, do all the fun stuff. Click the all under the notifications so that you will be notified when I go live. Typically, I go live on Sunday and Wednesdays and Fridays at 7:33 p.m. EST. But I know those notifications are so super helpful. But if you check out the Humans from the Future playlist here or check out my Patreon channel, you'll get all of the little clips that you see on the playlist. You'll get those full channelings on my Patreon channel. Yeah. I wasn't interviewing or taking interviews last year, but this year I'm back at it. So if you want to interview on your channel and we have an alignment, let me know. Anything else? Am I
Thank you
missing?
for subscribing, because I can see you guys actually starting to subscribe now, and
Yeah.
she's just hit 55,000. So thank you so much for doing that.
It's a different type of work. And I just really, my intention to bringing it to the world is to be able to change us from a current negative alignment if we know whether the alignment in the future be positive or negative, if we know what we need to shift and we can all work on shifting things together. That is my goal for bringing you Humans from the Future. And that is why it's one of my favorite forms of channeling. All right. Anything else?
No, nothing else. I'm sure you're exhausted.
All right. Thank you so much. And I will see you. What's today? Sunday? I'll see you on Wednesday. Will you bring Carla back if you want? If you guys request it. If you see any of the Humans from the Future in my playlist and you like them, I will do a poll and I'll see if I can bring some of them back. I know we're bringing Jessie back from the RRO in Humans from the Future, year 2100. We're bringing her back in March on my Patreon channel. So you'll get to talk to her there. So, do I do private sessions? Yes, I'm pretty booked out, but we're opening them up right now for Humans from the Future. We're booked out, but we are opening them back up again. So when did you say you're opening them?
There's only probably a little bit of space left
There's
in
a
the
little
calendar.
bit of space left.
On the 1st of March, we will open more of the calendar. And again, on the 14th of March, we'll open more of the calendar. The reason for this is that we just don't like going too far ahead in our calendar. We'll go a certain amount ahead, but we don't want to go months and months and months ahead.
Yeah, I agree, because I'm a mom of 4 and anything could happen. And then if I have to reschedule people, they get kind of upset. So I don't want to put us in a bind. I don't want to book out for the rest of the year. We always want to leave a little bit of open space.
But keep looking at the first, if you see the calendar closing, the 1st of a month and around the 14th of the month.
Yeah.
Just that's where you'll see spaces opening back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you can't get a reading, there's always, like, say, for instance, with the world predictions that we do at the beginning of every month, which one is due for March here very soon. It's a good time to go in there. Like, say, if I didn't reach your area of the world and you want to know what your current alignment is, go in there live for the world predictions one and ask about your area. But the best thing to do is to ask a little bit more specifically, not like what's going on. Ask what is going on in economics, what is going on in the environment, like get more specific. And that's also a great place to ask about some of the cryptocurrencies and things that you had questions about that she didn't really want to get into. It's kind of not her thing, so she didn't want to get into. Yeah. So that would be a good place to ask for humans from the future that aren't economists. Ask those kind of questions at the world prediction channelings. Come live to those and put that in the chat. The world predictions channelings. I have one coming up. Yeah. All right. You guys are amazing. Thank you, moderators. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Alana. I love you all. And thank you to our beautiful facilitator, Anya, for being patient with all of us.
Thank you all, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.